wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Definitely the entire team of the New Day crew is wishing you Merry Christmas. Okay, it's now time for us to step into the next discourse. After talking about Boxing Day, it's now time for us to look at the political sphere of Nigeria in 2017 and the possible realignment to take place in 2018 ahead of 2019. And no better person but a pro-democracy convener, activist, and also a political activist at that. And a governorship aspirant for the most enlightened state, some people call them, in Nigeria, talking about Ekiti State. We've got in the live studios Ario Dare Atoye, who is going to be taking us to 2017. Good morning. Awesome to have you in the studios.
Good morning. It's nice having me again. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And today is Boxing Day. Don't
Yeah,
fight,
Boxing.
don't share gifts.
Yeah, share gifts. All right, looking at how exciting would you say 2017 has been as regards politics in terms of the APC finally being in charge, the PDP struggling to be an opposition party, and also other parties like the APGA not necessarily stepping up the plate to take the gloves from the PDP as a strong opposition party, and other parties that registered in 2017. And how well do you think INEC has also done? I just want you to take us to the political space. First of all, how impressed are you about 2017 and politics in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I believe that the verdict of sincerity that would likely be for many Nigerians, but I don't like to generalize. My opinion might be different from that of others. Is the fact that politics, the end game of politics, is about a good standard of living. Politics must translate into good governance, must translate into something that will help to shape the society in a manner that the people will be able to see the gains and benefits of politics. Politics is not just a game for just getting into office. Fine, that's all it was about. If the purpose or the purposes for which you play politics are not met, then it means that it's a futile and not impressive exercise. Now we have to put it in context. We have to look at 2017 in retrospect. Context of the political parties, context of political happenings, and majorly the focus will always be in Nigeria on PDP, APC. But also don't forget that aside some other parties we have in the system, we had 5 new parties registered. We also had later another 21 new parties also registered. So now we're having close to about 70 something, about 75, 76 political parties in the country. So that's also a plus because our political space is growing, even though I'd advised the Independent National Electoral Commission on how to go about this subsequently, which I think I will also still touch about how to manage our political process with respect to the growing number of political parties. It is the essence of federalism to have more and more parties, but now in the context of federalism, there is a way to manage this process, which I don't think INEC has put into consideration. And probably let me just expatiate on that before we go into the APC, PDP, for the benefit of our viewers and the Independent National Electoral Commission. There is nothing bad in having a political party that wants to remain in a local government and say, look, this is the local government we want to govern and we want to show stuff, we want to show capacity. There is nothing bad in a political party saying, I want to just remain in a state. We just want to show our capacity. So basically, political party is like an association for people to be able to achieve something noble in the interest of the people. So now, what INEC should do in order to manage the process, based on my own suggestion, is the political parties should be made to file papers based on the area they want to, the capacity to contest the election. If you want to, you can just decide to remain in a state, you can remain at a zonal level, you can want to also do participate in national election.
Okay.
Now, and I think there should now be something like a kind of a guideline on the part of INEC on if you want to participate at state elections, federal elections, then you file necessary document that you have the capacity. So the idea of somebody, a political party wants to register, you must have a national outlook. It's not, I mean, it's not a kind of a federal arrangement. It's not noble based on our federal structure. You don't need to have a federal structure as a political party for you to be registered. And it's part of the faulty nature of our federalism. You can be a political party, you can be registered a political party, you want to operate within a state. But what you should do now is that so that it will enhance the growing process of political parties. Do you know if we had started in that manner, today we'll be having more than 2 political parties who are very strong because people have been growing through the process. You know that for you to be able to, because some of them were very interested in participating in governorship election of national election. So now you want to show capacity at your base, you want to put in place very strong and sincere process. But institution whereby you register parties, they will go and bring people, get themselves registered, they will go to bed and become a briefcase political party. That's now to grow the polity. The INEC must be in a position to also help them by ensuring that they follow what you call it, what I would call the pyramid way of growing, from the base, So these are some of the things. Now back to the political parties, the larger political has been I think it ended well for the PDP. Even though you may say that there is
really say it ended well.
Yeah, you say it ended well because when you look at where the party was coming from, in terms of the Ali Modu Sharif saga, which we had opportunity of even discussing here at a point in time, So it ended well for the PDP because it succeeded in holding its elective convention, even though there were issues. There were serious issues, and some of us frowned at these issues simply because, like I've said repeatedly, there was a zoning arrangement which was later flouted and compromised, and that actually, in a way, ruffled feathers. But I think the Reconciliation Committee, which for me was actually having an issue unnecessary, if we had gotten it right, but doing the job now. But one thing is that whichever way, there was going to be also reconciliation one way or the other, but it would have not been on this kind of scale, But I believe that it ended well because now it has a structure, an engaging structure. And majority of the party members, one way or the other, have come to accept the fact that the party is back. And Nigerians are seeing a new executive of the party holding meetings, talking.
We just heard that a splinter faction just emerged recently.
Yeah,
sorry, just to add to her question too, we also the strong allegations that Secondus also requested for massive amount of bribe before the convention, which he didn't get, specifically from Moses Siasia, that's a brother of Super Eagles ex-player, talking about Samson Siasia, who wanted to run, and he was told he had to bring massive amount in dollars and not. And this same Secondus is the person who emerged the chairman of the party. Can we truly say the PDP, adding to what she also said, the splinter secretariat?
These are about 2-3 issues in one. First, the issue of the splinter group. I would say that it's, the action of these guys are totally unnecessary and uncalled for. But the approach the party leadership are taking is not also heartwarming.
All right.
There are going to be people who are unhappy, people who have a disagreement with the process. Sharif took us through several rigor, and after that, he said no victor, no vanquish. What ordinarily I would have expected the party to do was to say, look, find a form of a splinter group. We don't think it's consequential, but however, these are our children. We'll reach out to them, we'll talk to them. We know they have grievances, we know they have concern, we're going to talk to them. We will relate with them, beg them, and look into their complaints and integrate them back into the party. But to call them riffrags, to call them all sort of names is totally unnecessary and uncovered. There's a place of leadership. I believe in sanction and reward.
Okay.
And even if you're going to discipline them, you discipline them within the ambit of the party. I'm not saying they should not be disciplined. I'm not saying they should not be sanctioned. But in a situation whereby you cannot reprobate and appropriate. I belong to a group called the Reform Group within the party, and we are told them to sanction Alimodu Sheriff's group when after the Supreme Court judgment, because we said them that we're going to be a repeat of a similar thing if they don't take that appropriate action. They didn't do that. They said no victor, no vanquish. And subsequently, they continue to, use a kind of a double standard in dealing with issues. So we told them that this thing was going to backfire. Now you see what had happened. So now if you are taking the approach of no victor, no vanquish, the reason that to bring everybody on board and you need more people, then you can't say these guys are inconsequential. In the same measure, you give them that opportunity, you give them a window. Then by the time you have given them window, then you now said, okay, you take the appropriate measure in terms of probably maybe sanctioning them. Probably maybe you give them till the period where you have you've stated that you're going to meet them, because I think the reconciliation committee led by the governor of Bayelsa, countryman Dixon, has said that he was going to meet with them sometimes, I think in January. Now you tell them that to avail themselves of this kind of opportunity, and by the time probably maybe they're unable to do that, then you now look into the party's constitution and take appropriate disciplinary action against them. So by and large, I think both sides have not been able to handle this issue clearly, because some of the guys, the faces that we saw and that the so fresh PDP are guys that are known with the party. Yeah. They've been there, doing one or two things for the party. I mean, not approve of their action, but nevertheless, we don't need the infighting now. If you have elders in the party, there are ways to go about these things. These guys have a meeting point. They are different from Alimodu Sheriff, who totally has no any mind with the PDP. Sheriff wasn't a PDP member, not a founding member of the PDP, had no real soul.
So you think this was going to go back?
Yeah,
to
they have
PDP
this. No, these guys have a connection, deep connection with the PDP, and they have elders that they respect and they obey. So, and they have people that they seriously respect within the party. All you need to do is just to explore the appropriate channel. Because you see, by the time you are taking this action, people will also be reminding you of your previous action. For instance, the governor of my state, a governor that, of course, people know that has been trying his best in terms of opposition to keep the work. If you come on TV or you're interviewing and you decide to call this guy's name, they're going to remind you that there was a time when you yourself also worked against the PDP. So we need to do things and be conscious of history. Probably maybe if you're a governor or you're somebody who had not left the PDP for whatever, you also had your grounds, you had your own concern for leaving the PDP and for working against the PDP in the election. These people have not even worked against PDP, they have only declared, their concerns, So when you look at all these things, they have their concern, but there are internal mechanism of, taking, exploring ways to deal with this issue. So basically, I think that aside this, the splinter group, their own concern, I think it ended well for the PDP. Now that at least we have a new national public secretary that is doing well and giving the APC a run for their money, keeping them on their toes.
From everything you're saying now, they are going to form a stronger position come 2019.
Absolutely. I think that if Mr. Kola Ologbondiyan is able to continue at this pace, sustain and improve on it, able to put his team together, marshal out his point, give the APC fact for fact, because these are one of the things that corporate Nigerians and all Nigerians want to see. Yeah. In the process, there will be on social media and some other, there will be issue of propaganda and some other things, but in the corporate media, TV, newspapers, there is a way you have to marshal out. That was why his first press statement was impressive, when he made a statement accusing the APC of lacking the integrity and honor to caution the PDP. To talk about the PDP's convention that you have even violated your own constitution, which says you have to have a party convention within 2 years. And he quoted expressly the provision of APC's constitution. These are way to go by. You don't just allege without substantiation. So and when I saw that first statement, I said, no, this man is going to get it right, because that's the proper way to go, in terms of good person, spokesman of a party. So, but for the APC, I think
did they end 2017 well?
No, not really. I think the only saving grace is the fact that they have the presidency.
Okay.
And they've not been able to hold their convention. The in-fight thing is still there. The president has not been able to probably bring all of them together to resolve these issues. Probably maybe because of the fact that some people still don't want to share. They don't want to share the space in terms of appointment, because see, one thing at the back end of all this is the issue of the gains of politics. How do we benefit from the largesse? How do we benefit from the bounty? All sorts of things like that. So it's been very tough for them, because ordinarily what they ought to have done was, when after winning election on March 28, 2015, we have had a post-victory summit, where all the groups that made up the merger process will have sat down and discussed on how to allocate positions. But because some few persons believed they were very smart and they had the president with them, that they were going to use that to circumvent orders. So that actually led to some of the things that started happening within the party. And that was how the new PDP, who was part of the APC merger, was able to get the Senate presidency and the speakership of the party. So it's something that is still deep within them, and they've not been able to resolve that. And I don't think the president is showing that political will to be able to put his party men together. So by and large, for APC, the inability for APC unable to do two strategic things: hold convention and also form a BOT. Then you can say they've been able to they've been able to put their house in order. And why it's not that very entertaining year, kind of a very strategic year politically, is that no single small party has been able to come on board to show something different.
Looking at APGA, would you say APGA's performance in Anambra specifically and other states has shown that they are here to stay, even though they are focusing on just minority states? What's your feeling about APGA? And also looking at defections in 2017, who has been worse of it?
For me, I think no new ground in terms of as far as APGA is concerned.
Okay.
They've not done anything new in terms of probably extending their territory to achieve certain political mileage in terms of adding to the strength of the party, like more states, winning more seats some in other places. So you can, to that extent, you will be able, you will say that find they succeeded in holding their ground, holding their base, and guiding their own territory. But by and large, it has not been an eventful year politically, because you had expected a party like probably maybe APDA too, that was formed with fanfare, to come on and start doing some certain things, but we've not seen much
of money bags for these two parties.
It's not just not money bag. There is a place of constructive engagement. Do you know that a party can make effect strictly on social media alone? If you put your social media outlook into, you see, Nigerians with social media connecting with WhatsApp alone, massive impression. And there is a way the media can help you, even if you don't have. There is a minimal with has. That's the space always there in the media. Both newspaper to take advantage of. Look at the abundant opportunity that People's TV has been giving political parties, political players in the country all through the year. Some of your guests, your door is not closed to any. Now imagine taking advantage of that to sell your party. Now it's not just coming to sit here, on PTV talking about politics, but what are those things that you want the people to see differently about your party? What are those things you are bringing to the table? So these are some of the things that some of them are formed just to be another apron spring of another big party. But in terms of ideological ideological is not in the sense of the capitalism kind of a thing, but in terms of what the people should be able to see, note with your party. And that's one thing that we have not been able to do, strategically, in our political system. That people should know your party and say, your party is for this. For instance, now we're talking about restructuring. We're talking about certain issue. Your party should be able to say, look, this is our stand on restructuring. Know us for it. This is our stand on this. No, we are pro-life. We are pro-abortion. We are pro-this. All sorts of things like that. We want regionalism. That's what we'll be fighting for. And when you look at Europe, you look at some of those developed countries, and even some developing ones, you see some political parties who are currently coming on stream. When you look at their history, they've been around for 20, 25 years. There is this new party, there is the third largest party in Germany as far as in terms of forming of government is concerned. Now, it's a party with extreme ideology. Do you understand? Extreme ideologies to the extent that Europe, is not even afraid
of it.
Because of the way they are coming up. Because one thing about they operate a kind of open system. There is ability for one party to be able to have influence in another country. So with such a party coming on stream, they will be feeding other political parties with same tendency in different parts of Europe. That's why when they see that kind of sign, the entire Europe started complaining about the president. They started sponsoring demonstrations, doing everything to see how they can put this party down.
Can we look at the populist party or ideology as one of such things that emerged?
Like
looking at what brought Macron to power and other outside contenders to power.
Yeah, the Macron thing is just a new wave of people's. They say it's a mass movement that's about the different new ideas of people thinking that they should do things differently.
Can you play out next year, looking at the Nigerian situation?
I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to have that. Probably maybe 2023 and 2019 has become almost strictly because, like I said, nothing is 100%. Almost strictly will be based on political expediency, to the extent that most of the political parties have zoned their presidential tickets to the north. So now that has limited the space one way or the other. Although the more smaller parties can decide to go and form alliance and pick somebody from Ekiti or pick somebody from Lagos or from Enugu or from different part of, or even from the north central minority. So it's all depends on the ability of those political parties to come together and strategize. But it's going to be more of PDP versus APC thing now. But there are likely to be surprises, really. I can't dispute that, but as at this moment, it's looking more or less like Tebra. I can tell you there are a lot of meetings going on, a lot of realignment going on. So I would like to speak by the time we get to that bridge and we'll see the emergence of that. But as it is now, it's still largely a political experience.
Still talking about the other parties aside from PDP and APC, we had INEC has registered 21
new
more
parties.
Political parties, and they're still accepting
More applications.
Yes. Now, what do you think? Do you think that INEC should keep accepting applications of other political parties, knowing that these political parties just come register and then we don't hear, like you've mentioned earlier, we don't get to hear little or nothing about them again. There's no ideology. They still remain underneath. Meanwhile, we still have the APC and PDP doing almost everything. Is it okay for us to keep accepting new political parties? Is that going to help the political space? Is it going to add anything? Is there any advantage?
Yeah, you see, we operate. This is Nigeria. Let me speak it from a historical point of view. There is this. We are not one in terms of socio-cultural. And we have different people coming together to accept a reality that we should operate as a nation. Now, even in nations where probably maybe they have almost one identity and they operate a federal kind of a system, they give the people that freedom to own political parties, political movement and association. As it were, this nation is a country of 36 states and 774 local government. By virtue of this alone, you say that based on how federalism should operate, that by the time before we start complaining about the number of political parties we should have in Nigeria, we should be having 774 political parties. Why am I saying this? Is that you can't stop people from coming together because our constitution gives room for this as a provision of the constitution. So INEC cannot stop accepting application from people who will go to court and the court will compel INEC.
Okay.
Now, however, what's my take here is that since INEC has come to the knowledge that this was going to give them problem, then you now put modalities in place such that you will not be fully encumbered. Encumbered all the time in terms of parties just filing for participation in presidential election and having this logistic problem in terms of putting their names on ballot papers, and where there is omission, somebody can go to court and want to invalidate the election because there are instances where we've had that kind of situation in the past, So there had to be some form of political negotiation, including the court actually coming to the rescue. But you can't stop people from registering. As of now, INEC has even said that they have about 80 more applications awaiting processing.
Yeah.
So you can't stop people from filing for registration, but INEC can put in place. And that's exactly, and I think we need to check the Electoral Act and the Constitution.
Sure. Okay.
Because I had that engagement with one of the senior INEC officers. I said, go and let us check the rules, the necessary books, if INEC, they allow INEC to come up with a kind of a mechanism for profiling these political parties, the one who can participate in certain elections, that we have attained this strength, so we are filing for this election. But however, the moment you register to go and participate in local elections. So if you have a strength, you file for it. We want to operate in Northwest, we want to operate in Southeast, we want to operate, all sorts of things like that. That's how the federalism. So at the point in time, you can now have opportunity of coming, to the center. So I don't know if that is okay, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's my own suggestion in order not to model up, the system and going to have this logistic problem.
All right, let's just wrap up. I would just like to have your take for 2017, the final score. How will you score Nigeria in terms of the political space and your expectation, for 2018?
Yeah, you see, 2017 has been very, very tough for Nigerians. You recently saw the statistics from the MBS.
Okay.
Fine Nigerian, one way or the other, try to maneuver out of recession, even though likely we'll still say it doesn't look as if we are really out of recession in terms of what the ordinary man feels. So now the MBN statistics is quite alarming. But even though it's a bit contained and managed from my own point of view, when you're talking about 4 million out of jobs, so more than that really. But it's why it's always tough for Nigerians. When we look around our nation, we know that we have the potentials to be big, to be exporter of jobs. Importer.
Yeah.
What I mean is that, for instance, to do something like a job lottery and bring in people to come and work in our nation. We have no problem with unemployment. We have no connect with unemployment in Nigeria if we had exploited the abundance of opportunities that we have in this very nation. We just need to have the right leaders who are sensitive to the situation, who can assemble the best of this country, who are ready to make sacrifices. Not the place of comfort. Aso Rock should even be dismantled, because when you operate in an environment where you don't have connect with the people, you are isolated. So it is what we call elite prison. Aso Rock is an elite prison, such that you cannot see most times what happens.
I don't think the president wants to hear this.
No, it's okay. That's the reality. We go to number 10 Downing Street
that's what I was
in the
about
UK.
to.
It's so easy. You relate with the people. Even White House, it's not that far. People do come around, all sorts of things like that. So this is a situation whereby when you restrict an area to the extent that it's only for the privileged few, you have made it an elite prison. The elites will come back and take advantage of the people, all sorts of things like that. So It's not been really a very good year for Nigerians, but in all things we have to give thanks to God, notwithstanding. So, but by and large, 2018 will be a very, very interesting year.
Strategic.
They will be spending more money because those who have put their money somewhere will bring it want to spend for politics, so there will be more money in circulation. And just the only thing is just that those who don't have money now, who are suffering, should be a bit innovative and see how you can collect money from politicians, not by lying, not by lying, but by being innovative. Do you understand? Have something to contribute to the system. And some of us who don't have money, who are also participating, who have to work harder. In terms of ideas that we bring into the table, and I believe that one way or the other, we have reached a breaking point where, to an extent, money politics has failed us.
Yeah.
So the people is the choice that the masses have to make in terms of.
Okay.
That's why I've been leading a campaign called the cost of your vote. I think I've said
The
it.
cost of your vote.
And what the cost of your vote is all about is that for the people to know that, you see, the vote you're selling is really very costly. And I put it at 864,000 naira, a single vote. You know why? The national minimum wage in Nigeria, which is, it's a national standard, is 18,000.
Okay.
Now let's assume that that's what you should hand by your vote. You know, so now your votes, when you cast it for any national election, any national office, that's president, vice president, governor, all those things. You know, those 4 years tenure. So you have put that person in that position for 48 months. That's your votes seal that person for that person for 48 months. Now when you multiply 18,000 naira by 48 months, it gives you 864,000 naira. So by and large, you are entitled to 864,000 if you must sell your vote. So and nobody's going to offer you that. So that's why you don't need to sell your vote. So if they give you 3,000 naira, you have been duped. Con by about 861,000. We are giving 3,000 naira. Politicians has duped you. So if the voters become wise and say, look, let's demand for good governance and not vote selling, then we'll start looking at the possibilities, because you're also going to blame your creator. If you want to sell your vote, sell it at 864,000. So you can go at your closet and tell God, I'm okay to suffer. I'm going to do my own. I know I've sold my vote. I don't have a say, but for you to sell your vote and still suffer, it's called double jeopardy. So, but if we are able to put in place a good system, and I believe that the struggle continues anyway, but I feel that we deserve better than what we have.
All right, this is the classic way we're calling it a wrap. I want to say a big thank you to Ario Dare Atoye, who has done us justice looking at 2017, and he has said 864,000 naira is the cost of one vote, so use it wisely. If you have to sell it that amount so that you know, okay, it was for a good cost. But like we're saying, vote selling is not the way to go. The right thing is to choose the right leaders, and so that the country could be better for it. This is how we'll be calling a wrap on Africa's Finest Breakfast Show. Thank you very much for joining us from 7:30 until this very moment, when somebody is to kiss us goodbye.
Yeah, do have a lovely 26. Go ahead and open your boxes of gifts, and
Yeah,
make sure
that's
you
true.
also give gifts today, being Boxing Day. We'll see you same time, same station tomorrow. I remain Chinomso Amadi saying good morning.